There is a scene towards the end that is two bunnies trying to beat each other to death, and I wrote down Bloodsport Kumite. And then later I wrote Dog Assassin, which, by the way, earlier I was looking over my notes and my wife walked by and read Dog Assassin. And I said, I can't go into it right now. I can't talk about this right now.
Sit back, it's time to get groovy. Question, do you remember that movie?
Welcome back to Remember That Movie. I am the third Alejandro Rosa on IMDb.
And I am Steve Johnston, still not on IMDb.
Yet. Folks, we have an interesting film for you guys this time. I think, Stephen, if I'm wrong, is this our first animated film?
This, I believe, is our first animated film yet.
Okay. We're doing an animated film, folks, but not the kind of animated film you think. For this particular episode, we are going back to 1978. 79. I thought it was 79, but it's 78. Released October of 1978. The film Watership Down. It's based on a very famous book by English writer Richard Adams. He wrote it in November of 1972, and then in 78, they turned it into a film. Apparently, it started out as stories he would tell while he was doing long car drives with his two daughters. And when at some point they were like, hey, you should write these down, Dad. And he was like, okay. And so he started to. He wasn't a writer. He worked during the day. He was a civil servant. And apparently in the evenings, he started writing down all these stories. And 18 months later, he had a book. And then we get this film, which is released October of 1978. It is written, directed, and produced by Martin Rosen. Stephen, have you ever seen this film before?
I had not. My experience with this film prior to a couple days ago can be summed up by three statements. It's an animated movie I had not watched, based on a book that I had not read, and it's got lots of bloody violence. That's what I knew going in. Apart from that, no idea. Now, you had seen this before, if I recall correctly, yes?
Yes, but I have to say, I said this right before we turned on the recording, is that we're almost on the same page with this one, because I had seen it, but it was like 20 years ago. And so I had a very vague recollection. I remember it was really messed up. I remember it was really intense. And I think it was good. I think. I had also not read the book. I knew it was based on a book, but I had not read it. So I still haven't read it, just as a follow-up to all our fans. Nope, hasn't read it. Interestingly enough, my wife had read it. She read it while she was a camp counselor because she had nothing else to read. And she read it, and I told her it was an animated film from 1978, and her statement to me was, why would you watch that? And then I told her that I had watched it before, and she said, that's even worse. Why would you watch it again? And I said, because Stephen and I need new material. So why not? And also I said, I haven't disturbed Stephen yet. So I wanted to give him something disturbing to watch with cute little bunnies. Because at the end of the day, folks, that's what this movie's about. It's about bunnies. It's about bunny life, bunny living. Get busy bunny living, or get busy bunny dying. The last time we did an episode, Stephen did a plot in 60 seconds, and I was...
Oh, yes, that's right.
I was getting mad at him before we started recording because I said, and I quote, it was your idea, and then you did it in 59 seconds. I
honestly thought I had gone over.
I am going to do a less good job about this film because I don't know it as well. And so I jotted down some notes, and I apologize those watching. Yes, I'm looking down at my notes because I have to cheat for this exam. So I will do my best. And I expect to fail. I'm now going to have to come up with a sound effect for failure. We already have one for success. Thanks, Stephen. And now I'm going to have to find one for failure. Before we begin the summary, I need to explain, for those of you who don't know, as I did not know, what a burrow and a warren is. A burrow is a hole or a tunnel that's been excavated by an animal for habitation or temporary refuge. Okay, so bunny makes a hole with a little tunnel underneath the ground. A rabbit warren is a well-developed burrow. So it might have multiple tunnels. It's very nice. It's a nicer house. So anyway, warren, burrow. Now you're caught up. Okay. Going back to the 60 seconds. Am I ready? I am not. So here we go. A warren in Saddleford. We meet a runt of a rabbit named Fiver, who appears to have visions of future events frequently that have come true. He tells his brother, Hazel, that he has seen their warren get completely destroyed, and they need to leave. They need to leave right now. His brother says, well, let's go tell the chief rabbit about this. When they go, they speak to the chief rabbit. The chief rabbit dismisses them, as in, no, what are you talking about? Go away. And they decide they need to leave anyway. And so they are about ready to go, and a few of the other rabbits say, hey, we're kind of scared about this. We're going to come with you. There is also involved here a bunny kind of police force. Apparently every warren has their own police precinct of bunnies in this story. And so they can't just run off because apparently they get in trouble with the bunny law. So they have to sneak out.
And they end up journeying through the woods, getting into all sorts of countless perils. Some of them do not make it, all looking for a safe place. And right now, Fiver seems to be the one guiding them because he has an idea or a vision of where they should go.
And then they live happily ever after. And just so you know, there's a lot of like abuse and blood and death that I did not go into the details of. There you go. That's definitely 60 seconds, right?
Oh, absolutely. No? Oh, no, it was 60 seconds. And then some.
And thank you so much for that.
Do you want me to lie to you?
Who is in this film? Okay, Stephen, you're going to help me out here. So, Hazel,
yes,
Hazel's played by a very famous British actor named John Hurt. And Fiver is played by Richard Briers, a name that I don't know, but apparently should know.
Actually, his was one of the ones that I did not recognize.
This is going great.
Hey, so far we've got 1 and 1.
Okay. The one big name, the only name that I recognized was Zero Mostel.
Ah, excellent.
Right? Who played the seagull? Kahar. The character is based on a fighter from the Norwegian resistance from World War II that Richard Adams knew.
I was going to ask when we got to the character what he was supposed to be or what he was based on, because I could not place it.
Tell me about the actors that you recognize from this film.
Okay, so there were a couple more names that I think you will recognize once I expound upon them, extol upon them, talk about them. First off, if you remember the character of Cowslip from the first warren that they encounter having left theirs, he is the one with the slightly limp paw who talks in a very...
And he has a very weird speech pattern.
Yes. He was played by Denholm Elliott. Now, you know Denholm Elliott from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade because he plays Marcus Brody, the museum curator.
Yes. I do know him then.
You do know him.
All right. I got one.
The voice of Frith, the god in this particular universe.
Yes.
Voiced by Michael Hordern. He is a British actor whom I don't think you would necessarily know, but you would recognize him if you saw him. He has been in numerous British films. And he was just a name that I saw and went, oh, cool, he's in it. The other one, so you mentioned Zara Mostel, you mentioned John Hurt. The other one that you should, or I would expect you to know, was the voice of the Black Rabbit. He was voiced by Joss Ackland. Now, Joss Ackland is I forget which country he is from. But you will know him probably from Lethal Weapon 2, I believe. because he is the South African ambassador who holds up his passport at the end and says, "Diplomatic immunity," before getting shot.
I don't remember. It's been a long time for
Okay.
any of the Lethal Weapon films, but I did see them a lot, so I'm surprised I don't recall. But okay, all right.
But yes,
fair
if
enough.
you go back and review that scene, that is
Yeah.
Joss Ackland. And again, he has been in several things. He has a very memorable face and memorable accent. He might actually be South African now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay, so it's an interesting film. It's an adventure story, is the way it's described if you look it up. It follows, oddly enough, some of the kind of classic, the hero's journey, the Odyssey, that sort of thing. It's just in bunny format. So this is the story, this bunny story. And it's hard to, now that I'm actually like talking about it, it's actually very difficult to explain because some of the animation is like, oh, they're kind of cute. They're kind of cute bunnies. But I was tense 99% of this film. I was scared. I didn't know what was coming around the bend because the film immediately points something out to you. Bunnies have a lot of people who are trying to eat them. And then, of course, they go into the actual bunny society that has been created. And there's a lot of problems with these bunnies, man, and they don't get along. So it was very intense. That was my reaction seeing it again. I was tense the whole time. One of those movies that you're like, I kind of want this to end because this is stressful. I am stressed out looking at these damn bunnies crossing a field going, run, bunny, run, because I'm so scared. I mean, there is a moment at the beginning of their journey, right, that they're like resting. And then one of the bunnies goes, ooh, look, a little something to eat. And the little bunny scurries off just a few steps. And one of the bunnies like looks over and then they just see fur because a hawk came down and took the bunny.
Yep.
Terrifying. Every time they turn around. And there was another one it wasn't a possum, but it was some kind of animal like that. And it popped out.
It was a badger.
Thank you. It was a badger. And it popped out. And of course they were like, ah, but the badger didn't try to eat them. And they point out it was because, did you see the badger had blood all over its mouth? Which by the way, folks, was drawn in. And they were like, oh, thank God he'd already eaten or he'd be eating us. And it was like, good God. Every time, like, I think so many of my notes are like, I have notes that are like, Jesus, scary bunnies. Oh my God. There was a lot of exclamation points. I just wrote damn next to one of these. Yes. To begin the film, we have a kind of creation story, or not a creation story, more mythology story almost.
I say, we get bunny mythology.
It's bunny mythology.
Which I really kind of liked.
Yeah. It's almost like they talk about the original bunny, or the original creatures of the earth. And then at some point, this particular creature upset the god. And so it created the other creatures. It changed them into creatures that would hunt and kill this particular creature, which was a bunny, right? He gave a fierce desire to hunt and slay the children of Al-Rara?
Sounds about right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we need to point something out. Okay, because we're going to get lost in this. So, Mr. Richard Adams, he created a fictional language for the rabbit culture that references like names of animals, names of their names, any kind of like gods and things like that, all made up, okay? And he called this fictional language Lepine, which
Fitting.
is
Okay.
apparently It's from the French word for rabbit.
This is a difficult one to kind of get into because you're going through all of the vocabulary that is introduced. And
Yeah.
I was just as lost as you were. I spent like the first 20 minutes of the movie trying to figure out if I was supposed to know what these words were.
That's right. My favorite was
And-
hang on,
Yeah.
hurudu, which was
yes, yeah,
a car. It was a car,
car.
right? A man thing killed it. A hurudu. By the way,
That-
I want you to know, since we've already mentioned it, that I wrote "Hawk!" ! Bye, bunny. Then the quote, "Violet's gone."
This- I have a note on that scene as well.
Oh, what do you have?
My note is just no warning for Violet, because as you mentioned, Fiver looks up into the sky and sees the hawk
Yeah.
and says nothing, and then Violet's gone.
One of the things that was really hard for me watching this film, unlike yourself, was that I had watched it once before. So I had a vague recollection. So I was kind of braced for the violence. So I think that actually made me more tense as I watched it.
Ah, okay.
Because I kept waiting for bad things to happen. And the snare scene was when Bigwig is caught in a bunny snare, and so is essentially choking, right? Was terrifying and disturbing. And then it looks like they're trying to get, Bigwig free, and they get him free, but then it looks like he died. And the bunnies then together, recognizing that one of their own is gone, say, "My heart has joined the 1,000, for my friend stopped running today." And they all say it together, kind of like a prayer.
Bunny last rites, if you will.
Yes, exactly. And they all knew what to say. It's like, oh, this is what we say when one of our bunnies is down. Don't worry, folks. My next note is Bigwig is alive. He made it. So anyway, so yes, interesting scene. And just so much of this film was just me scared of bad things happening. So that was confusing. But let me ask you, what is your reaction to this film? How was it for you? Because, again, you'd never seen it.
Going in knowing that it had the reputation for being very violent and graphic in that violence, like you, I spent the first 20 to 30 minutes very tense, expecting something bad to happen. That scene with Bigwig getting caught in the snare was, oddly enough, sort of a turning point where I relaxed just a little bit once it was finished. Because I was rewarded, my anticipation was rewarded because, something bad has happened. Oh, they're going to be able to save him. We'll get out of it. Oh, they managed to do what they needed to do, but he still died. Oh. But wait, he's still alive. So it's like, okay, I have given up trying to figure out sort of what to expect when bad things befall the rabbits, because we have a scene in which he gets caught, gets freed, dies anyway, comes back to life. What is it going to be?
Yeah.
From that point forward, I was a little more chill, I suppose you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Not as on the edge of my seat. The interesting thing that I found was that I did not know what to expect from this movie in terms of the story. I went in assuming that this was going to be, like you referenced earlier, the hero's journey, the Odyssey, where we are just going to follow this group of rabbits as they try to find a new home. And the first 30 minutes of the movie is just a series of vignettes. It's like, here is a scene, something bad happens. Here is a scene, they get through something nicely. Here is a scene, they get a bit of respite. And I realized that for the first half hour or so, it looks like a book that has been made into a movie. Because in my mind, I was going, oh, these are all chapters. this, if we were to pick up a book and open chapter 3, well, this is the bit where they cross the road, or
Yes.
they fall asleep in the flowers and then one of them gets eaten by a hawk and then they carry on. At the 30-minute mark, Fiver is standing on top of a hill with the rabbits that remain. They are looking out over the valley. They see Watership down in the distance, and he says, that's where we need to go. And for me, that is where the movie... That's where the plot properly kicked in, because now we had a goal. We knew where we needed to get to, and whatever came in between... I figured that was kind of... We were going to lose some, we were going to have animal attacks, etc., but we're just going to get up to the hill. That'll be the extent of the movie. And then 15 minutes later, we get to the top of the hill. I was like, okay,
Now
where's
what?
the rest of this going? And then we get into the second plot, which is, oh dear, this is a bit of a sausage fest. Let us see if we can find some females who might like to join us in this nice, safe warren on top of the hill.
Yes,
And-
just to point out for the plot of the film, the only doe that went with them from their warren was Violet, the one who got eaten by a hawk. Go on.
So, first half of the film, getting from Old Warren to Watership Down. Second half of the film, the attempts to basically set it up so that they can have a good society living in this warren on top of the hill. And the second half, in my opinion, was far more interesting than the first half. Again, just because the first half kind of jumped around, you weren't sure what you were doing. There was a continuation because they're always traveling to get to wherever it is they're going, though it wasn't established where at that point in the movie.
Well, and I actually thought that was kind of interesting because I can't even go into, bunny culture wise, the bunnies leave the land that they know and they have no idea where they're going. And so, yeah, it is these little vignettes of like, okay, we're going to go here now. Okay, let's go to this building near the cemetery. We can sleep there because, again, they're always at risk. So they're constantly trying to find shelter and being, looking out for danger. And so I kind of liked that because it was they were really struggling. And kind of like in any other movie, halfway through that journey, they start bickering. And it's like, do you even know where we're going? Like, we need to stop. And other people are like, I wish we could just go back. I just want to go home.
I
really liked that. That was very real. And just frustrated with Hazel, who is our kind of de facto leader, and Fiver, who's kind of our weird bunny who sees things. I love that. And Bigwig was, an officer, right, in the bunny police, and he's with them, and he's kind of very straight-laced, like, oh, we just need to do this, And so you have all these different personalities, and there's bickering, and there's fighting, and there's fear. I really liked that. I thought that was great. And I didn't like it at the time. Like, I did not feel good while I was watching it because, again, I was stressed. But as a story, I thought it was fascinating that they put that on these rabbits.
I did like that as well. No, you are correct. I think what would have made the experience, or the first 30 minutes experience, better for me is if I had any sort of idea of time or distance. That, I think, was the problem that came with, all right, we do this thing, we fade to black, now we fade in and we're somewhere else. I had no idea how far away they were from the original warren. I had no idea how many days or weeks or how much time had passed since they had left. So when they start going into, hey, we're tired, we just want to go back. No, we've got to keep pushing forward. Do you even know where we're going? And the lie of, oh yeah, no, it's just a few more hills and we'll be there. That was good.
Yeah.
And then, again, once we establish, here is where we are, that is where we're going, it's like, okay, I now have references to sort of how much further we need to go. And I think just in terms of like establishing a timeline, both for time and distance, that added to my enjoyment rather than the first bit where it's just a series of, okay, we're going, okay, how far have they gone at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. it continues to just, like you said, they're at Watership Down, and then they realize like they can't create a society with just male bunnies, and they found some what they call does at a farm nearby, and so they've kind of been Hazel's hatching a plan to kind of get the does out, and then the seagull, who's fantastic, they meet, who is hurt, and so they decide, he ends up at Watership Down, and then decide to help him, Kihar. And so Kihar is a weird bird, but he stays with them and like recuperates from like a hurt wing. And then at some point, he's getting mad at them because it's like, you don't have a society, you don't have a plan. I remember that was one of my favorite lines. He's like, you don't have a plan. There's no does here. There's no, and he was essentially saying is there's no female bunnies here. There won't be any babies here. You don't have a plan. This is ridiculous. And then Hazel, who is always one step ahead, is purposely trying to goad Kihar to help them because Kihar can fly and can tell them where there are bunnies. But it has to come from Kihar. So in this very interesting exchange at some point, Kihar's like, you don't have a plan. I have a plan. Like, I will find you bunnies. And Hazel's like, oh, really? Well,
that's brilliant. You are such a smart bird for coming up with that fun. I love that
very
scene.
much. That was a great scene. And so, so this bird is helping them. And then, when we have the Captain Holly, come back and describes a horrible warren where, like, if you misbehave, if you're out of bounds, you can get, like, cut and have your ears ripped. This is when stuff gets really dark.
Yes.
Bigwig is like, I need to investigate this. I need to check this out in this horrible warren. And he does. And our villain is absolutely terrifying. He's a terrifying bunny. What do we make of this? What do we make of this film, Stephen? I don't even, we normally talk about the good, the bad. I don't know if we have a new category going, what do we do with this? Is this a children's film?
No.
Is this, what's interesting though, little factoid,
Okay.
when the, forgive me because I don't know this off the top of my head, the British Board of Film Classification.
Oh, this should be good. Go ahead.
They gave this film the category U, which means for all, for everyone. It's essentially a G rating for this film when it came out in 1978. After that, just said, it's for everybody. It's fine. And it wasn't until 2022 that after many complaints and such, they finally turned it around and rated it PG. Yeah. Children watch this. In fact,
wow.
Let's talk about the reaction to this film. Our reaction, but also other people's. Critics were mixed all over the place, whether they liked this film or not.
Okay.
They were divided. Some praised it. They thought, oh, wow, this is genius. This is amazing. Others were like, no, this is not as good as the book, or this is just a hot mess, or this is like Disney, but not trying to be serious, but also cute. I don't understand this film. Here's a quote that I love, and it's not from back then. It was for the 40th anniversary of the film. Ed Power of The Independent described the film as a classic which arguably traumatized a generation. I think that's accurate. And other people have come to its defense. They're like, "Oh, you think the Brothers Grimm was super great?" Like, they've used other examples. Roald Dahl has a lot of dark stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I think everyone was all over the place. I will say the weirdest thing in the film is that it has one song right in the middle. It's Bright Eyes, sung by Art Garfunkel. It's a famous hit for Art Garfunkel. And it's suddenly in the film, which is very 70s, but still weird in a bunny movie.
Yeah.
Because this is when Hazel has been shot. Yes, of course, one of our main characters got shot. And Fiver of course, is seeing some kind of ghost bunny who's showing him the way as he's trying to find his brother before he bleeds out. So yes, and so we have a Bright Eyes in the middle of it. It's Fiver's tracking down where Hazel is bleeding and laying there.
Let me ask you,
Please.
did that sequence work for you?
No. It was. I felt completely out of contact. I mean,
Yeah.
it just didn't feel. It didn't fit the theme. It didn't fit the style of the movie. It was odd. But a lot of this movie was odd. What didn't you like about this film? Let's just go there. Or did you like this film?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I cannot say that I enjoyed the film.
Okay.
Because, as you say, it is a very tense watch. It's a little all over the place at times. Unfocused, perhaps.
Okay.
There was just a lot going on.
Yes.
I've got a couple notes of thoughts that I had while watching. One of them was this. My understanding going in is that this film was supposed to have an environmental aspect to it, and the environmental aspect was like one line.
One line. After
Captain Holly describes the destruction of the Warren, Fiver goes, "Oh yeah, man will destroy anything that he sets his foot on," and that's it.
Yeah.
I was confused during the run of the movie as to the nature of the mythology. I liked the mythos that we were presented at the beginning. I actually liked the fact that there was sort of the established religion within bunny culture where everyone knows this prayer, everyone knows the name of the gods and the characters, the black rabbit being death, etc. And I thought, okay, that's cool. That is a neat world building thing that has gone on within this culture. And then during Hazel's plan to use the dog to fight the general at the end, he calls out and says, "Okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll give you my life, but save the life of everyone else back at the Warren." And then the god replies saying, "Nope, no deal. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen." So apparently God is actually real in this universe.
Hey, God. Yeah.
Is
Firth the bunny god or the creature god or the creator of things.
I actually just wrote down, it's like, oh, God's real now. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, mythology, fantastic. The established religion, I'm okay with. But then to all of a sudden go towards the end of the movie, oh yeah, no, it's all real. It's like, oh, okay.
Yes. Including at the very, very end.
Yeah.
The very, very end, when, after Watership Down has been settled and Hazel is old and this kind of spirit comes to him and says, join me. And, okay, I have to tell you that was like, I thought I could relax. And then it was like, join me. Oh no, Watership Down will be fine. And Hazel was like, okay. So I thought, oh, is he going to hop away into the mist or something? No, he just rolls over and dies. And I was like, what? And yes, then you see his little bunny spirit come out of the body. But it was just the body kind of keeling over. That was just like, good God, can you just give me some kind of Disney? Can I just get a hint of Disney, please? I'm so sad. It's like terrible. Yeah.
So but this all kind of is a torrent of emotions because I'm sitting here describing going, this is all the stuff that was just confusing and it annoyed me and it irked me, but I really did kind of like the movie in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. It can be imperfect.
Yes.
And I think it is. I think it is imperfect.
Yeah.
I'm almost tempted. I want to say in maybe it was 2017 or 2019, there was a new version made of Watership Down that's on Netflix. And I'm almost tempted to watch. And they said it was a drama. and it looks, the animation's different, but I'm assuming it's dark. And I'm almost tempted to watch it just to see what they did with the source material now.
Just to see how it compares to
the 1970s
Yeah.
right version by a director who'd never directed before and who just took over an entire project, and to see it in other people's hands and see what they did with it, see if it's more focused,
Yes.
but I don't know if I want to put myself through that yet.
No, give it a little bit of time.
I think so.
Going back to the...
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Going back to the one thing that I did not like. I have one thing in my column.
Okay.
And that was, once they've gotten to Watership Down, realized there are no women, Hazel leads an expedition back to a farm that they passed where they saw some bunnies in captivity, and he attempts to free them, inviting them to come and join him in this free society that we have up on the top of the hill. One bunny, what was her name? Clover?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was Clover.
Clover was on board and says, okay, yes, I'll come. But there are like 5 other female rabbits who are also in these hutches that have now been opened, who are not so sure that they want to leave the farm. And Hazel and his male companions hop behind them and start pushing them towards the door. It's like, no, stop, please. That was the one thing that made me go, oh, no.
This is an excellent segue for my prickly about this film.
Good.
Honestly, apparently it applies to both the film and the book, which is the role of gender in this story, or the lack thereof. This has been written about both, which is that kind of what you just said. The does, the female bunnies, are for usage, but no real other purpose. The characters are barely there. Clover is one of them. Hyacinth is the only other bunny really that we hear about that is a female bunny. And she's in the bad Warren, the dictatorship. There is a line that is the cringiest line for me in the entire film, which is our wonderful evildoer who, when Bigwig joins the horrible Warren, he says, and if you want a doe, just pick one. There's plenty. And I was sitting there at my computer going, oh, God, no. Oh, God. I know what that means. That's awful. And sure enough, even Hyacinth is terrified and just wants to get out of this place, but is also kind of, broken and just resigned a little. There has been criticisms about this, and let me tell you why. And forgive me, you're going to hear me turning pages because I have to find a thing. The wild rabbit behaviors in this film are based on the descriptions of a book called The Private Life of the Rabbit, which is written by a naturalist, Ronald Lockley. He and Richard Adams actually eventually became friends, and they even did an expedition to Antarctica together. But one thing that has been brought up in the criticism of the book and the film is that the role of women was by the author's choosing, because in bunny society, it's actually more matriarchal. And even new warrens are often created by young females who are unhappy where they are. And so they go and start new warrens. So it was in the book, essentially, that the book that he used as a reference for all the bunny behavior, but he decided that not so much. To his credit, he wrote a sequel about 25 years later in the mid-90s called Tales of Watership Down, which are all stories. And in those stories, there are actual female characters who actually have stuff to do, as opposed to...
nice. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of that. So, yeah, so that was my only thing with it. Watching it, I'm like, there's really no women in this story at all. And there should have been, because they were sort of there, but we didn't really, they were there to serve a purpose, right?
Right.
So that was odd. That was odd. But let's be fair, this entire movie's odd. Anyway, what a glowing endorsement for Watership Down. Folks, you can find this on HBO, or as it's known now, Max, if you so desire. I actually rented it on something. Amazon. I rented it on Amazon for all of like $3. And remember, if you're going to watch the old film, don't pay for it in HD. Watch it in SD. Really.
Might as well.
Yeah, you might as well. You got to get the real experience. So that's what I think what we have on Watership Down. Are we missing anything, Stephen?
No. I think your sum up at the end there was correct. It's like, you should watch this film. You're not going to enjoy it.
You should maybe watch this film. Maybe watch the trailer of this film. And if that doesn't turn you off, then watch the film. Or watch the new one. I don't know. Or read the book. Or don't do any of it. I don't know. This one's a weird one for me. Play the music.
Sit back, it's time to get groovy. Question, do you remember that movie?